Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
That's that voice. My main man, Jacob Padilla, fresh off the interstate, covering press conferences after press conferences, and he's just multifaceted. He does a little football, a little volleyball, a lot of basketball, a little more football, high school, college, the whole kit and caboodle, man.
Try to stay busy.
You don't mind that either, though, do you? My man is constantly on the go. Heck of a kind of statement week is kind of what I called last week. There were a couple of teams that I felt like had a chance to make some statements, and they did.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, the easy ones are Bennington and Millard South, and we'll get to them. But, quietly, I just want to start in B just for a second because I got into a little bit of it wasn't even a disagreement because I didn't have an opinion one way or another. But the school in Class B that the fewest people believe in, but they just keep winning? Who would you guess that to be?
Fewest believe in. Would it be the reigning champs?
The Elkhorn Antlers. I'm telling you. So I'm at the grocery store, and of course, some people know my relationship with Coach Christo and Coach Haig and Coach Wortman, formerly retired Coach Wortman, and just a lot of guys out there that I've known for a long time. And it really became a topic of discussion. I don't know how they do it. It doesn't make any sense. The schedule must not be this. The schedule must not be that. And all I could simply say, it was two guys in particular, and all I could simply say was sometimes knowing how to win matters. And it is really hard to win.
We've seen it the last 2 weeks with them coming back late to pull off make some big plays and get the win somehow. They're 4-0, but I was looking at Sauter's coaches poll on NEB Preps, and I texted him just to make sure there wasn't a mistake or something. I saw that Elkhorn dropped from 3 to 6, I think it was, after
that's the level of respect they're getting, right? Or lack of respect.
And that's coaches. That's not even Sauter's opinion. That's a coach's poll.
Sometimes I want to look at him after some of those polls, and I'm like, are you just saying coaches, and it's really your own? Because I think coaches typically reward winning.
Yeah.
Right?
And especially reigning champs, typically you're up pretty high until you lose. You get the benefit of the doubt,
right?
And this is a special situation where different coach, and they lost almost all of their key playmakers.
Production, yeah.
They've had a little bit of injuries this year too, with some important guys missing time. But again, they find a way to get to win late, and another 23-21 comeback against Blair.
Just keep hanging around. You allow them the opportunities to win close games. And a couple weeks ago, it was a safety was the difference. Listen, that's part of winning. I'll never be dismissive of that because it's hard to do.
And against Waverly 2 weeks ago, 90-yard touchdown go-ahead run, and then a 2-point conversion to take the lead instead of going for the tie. And then the defense got it done. So they've got different ways to win. It's not always pretty. They haven't looked the most impressive in their wins, but 1, 2, 3, 4, about five teams are 4-0 here in the top 10 in Class B, and they're one of them.
Outside of let's take the two usual suspects of the teams that we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. So let's set Bennington and Plattsmouth aside. We just talked about Elkhorn. The fourth remaining undefeated team in Class B is?
Oh, we got
in the top 10.
Yeah.
In the top 10.
We got, according to Sauter's poll, we got Seward and Beatrice kind of there hanging back in the top 10.
We don't know. We think we kind of know about Beatrice just because of the schedule, but Seward is flying under the radar, a team that I don't know a whole lot about.
Yeah. And Beatrice will have a test this week. That might be the best game in B on this week's slate.
Is that at their place?
Yep. Home against Norris, who is coming off a 44-0 win over Roncalli.
Kind of odd to see Norris at 2-2.
Yeah.
And very, very highly respected because outside of Elkhorn North, the schedule, they've had a bit of a tough schedule.
And speaking of North, that's who Beatrice just knocked off 41-40. And man, it seems like they've played every team in the top 10. Their first, I don't think they've faced an unranked opponent yet.
Yeah, Elkhorn North coming off a performance, and they'll have Scott, who
another one
is kind of licking their wounds. That's a pretty unhappy bunch. Know that staff at Omaha Scott pretty well. Not real happy about how it played out against a very, very good Bennington team, but they're getting one of the better kept secrets. I think people associate him with baseball. Easton Maine's stat line for Elkhorn North was pretty impressive. He threw for 110 yards. He ran for 200. He had the huge kickoff return for a 90-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. You're just not going to see that very often. But Easton Maine, he could give Scott some problems, especially if Scott continues to have problems kind of setting the edge defensively where Bennington really ate them up.
Yeah, I was there on the sidelines for that one, and complete mismatch just that day. Bennington, and it wasn't even just Mossick. He was impressive, but Nick Colvert came in the backup and went for 101 yards on 8 carries. They rushed for 381 yards on 48 carries against Scott.
Yeah, not sure if this is recency biased or I talked to 2 guys on Omaha Scott's staff that said Mostick has the best vision that they've seen in the last 10 to 15 years.
That's high praise. That's the first time that I've seen him play, and
faster than you think, isn't he?
And he's really slippery. I don't know how he finds ways to sneak through these holes. He had guys' arms on him all day long, but he just ran right through the arm tackles. It's tough.
I've seen him. I saw him twice last year, and I always tell people the thing about him is he doesn't run like he's built, but he's capable when it calls, right? Yeah. He can go 41 for 170 something like he did last week, and it's pretty workmanlike.
Yeah.
4 yards a carry because he's kind of built like a hammer, much more a hammer than a nail. But you watch him run, he's pretty smooth, and he's faster than people think until they see him up close.
Yeah, and Scott, they stuffed him a few times, but then 2-3 times in a row, and then the 4th time, here he comes breaking off a big one, busting off. He had a few extended runs that were really impressive, and they had I think he had maybe 2 touchdowns called back.
Yeah, he did.
Penalties.
Yeah.
So it could have even been an even bigger day.
How if you're Omaha Scott, what are you doing on offense? Like, how would you play if you're them? Because they're kind of all over the place.
Yeah, I think they're struggling to kind of figure out what they do best and how to kind of get into that rhythm. You look at quarterback play. Trey Bird got the better of that battle on was that Friday night? Hit 14 for 18, 233 yards and 3 scores. Really efficient day, and then picked up 69 yards on the ground too. So I think they definitely need better play. Scott does from the quarterback position, but Mac Hold'em is a pretty good running back. I think they've got to be able to control the line of scrimmage a little bit better than they did against Bennington. Though they've got to be able to get him going. He had a really nice big run in that game. Like he's more than capable if he can get some good blocking, if they can kind of stick to that.
Just inevitable that we have a Bennington-Platt-Smith collision here coming up down the road.
Oh, man. That'll be fun if we get that. Just talk about Mostick. Hey, Christian Meneses, again, 20 for 326 and 5 scores. So
it's weird. My affinity and infatuation with Meneses kind of happened on accident, just kind of the relationship that I have with Coach DeZuris. And I've got a couple of what I call P1s of the morning show that are Platt-Smith guys. So just develop relationships over the last couple of years. And I was constantly getting, hey, you got to come see this guy. Hey, you got to see Meneses. So I send me clips all the time, and I just start to watch him, and I'm thinking, well, last year I felt like he was kind of flying under the radar. Not so much this year. I mean, there's a nice little collection of running backs in Class B that are really holding their own.
Yeah, and 47-7 win over Mount Michael last week. Platt-Smith improved to 4-0. So they're doing what they need to. Just got to keep cruising along. Yeah,
I think the back part of their schedule thickens up quite a bit.
Yeah.
It gets tougher, but I think they're built for it.
And I mean, that's probably the way you like it, is build up some confidence early, kind of establish how you want to play, and then start seeing that schedule ramp up to get you ready for the postseason.
Yeah, speaking of which, you should probably flip over.
I think we got one more in B, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sean. So, obviously, 1 versus 2 didn't quite live up to the hype. That was a 42-7 win for Bennington, just complete domination against Scott. The other one, though, ended up being a much better game, and that's GI Northwest and Waverly. And Waverly's still playing backup quarterback Trey Jackson.
Another team that's had a tough schedule.
Yeah, and they pulled out a 41-34 win against the Vikings. And Jackson was efficient. Again, they didn't pass it nearly as much as they did against Elkhorn. But
he had his coming out party last week when you were watching him spin it, and you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, is this Waverly?
Yeah.
Is this the Waverly?
Only took attempted 10 passes, but completed 6 of them for 130 yards and 3 touchdowns. So pretty efficient. Riley Marsh is a really nice receiver. I think he's going D2. Off the top of my head, I can't remember where he's committed. But Mankato maybe.
Is it Minnesota Mankato?
I think it might be. Yeah. But yeah, he really impressed me. He had 3 of those catches for 98 yards and 2 of the touchdowns. And they got Evan Cassins going on the ground, plus Eddie Johnson. Between the two of them, 33 carries for 285 yards and 3 scores.
If you feel good making any generalizations about B, or are we just part 2 from 2020 where we say, man, we probably just better let this play out?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same story again, same 7-8 teams that are just going to keep battling week in and week out. And eventually we're going to see those guys down the stretch get a chance to test themselves against each other in the postseason. We saw a lot of top 10 matchups throughout last year because it is kind of the same teams, and B is so much smaller than it used to be. So it's just kind of looking like a repeat of last year, I think.
Yeah, you know what's going to be interesting is, college football always talks about tiers, right? Yeah. Easier to decide the tiers in A or B because I'm kind of seeing some similarities, right? I think people would put, and maybe Westside has moved into that tier. We'll talk about that in a second. I think if Westside played Bellevue West tomorrow, I think Bellevue West would have the advantage. So for right now, I'll say Millard South and Bellevue West in the same tier, or Millard South and then you get into the Bellevue West to Westside. It's almost like you'd go probably Bennington and Plattsmouth. And then there's that bunch 3 through 8. There's some similarities when you look at both the classes.
Yeah, I think that the biggest difference there is Plattsmouth hasn't gotten a chance to take on the other top teams yet. So they look really impressive, and obviously Manassas is a dude. But they haven't faced a competition that Bennington has in Scott and handle it. So you've got kind of that edge for Bennington there compared. Whereas I guess Westside is kind of in a similar deal, but we're talking Millard South, Bellevue West, and Bellevue West has already has some good wins on its resume even before losing to Millard South.
Yeah, and getting North when we did following Lincoln Southeast before North had a chance for some injuries to kind of rack up, I think is a better measure. I mean, they were tough against Omaha Burke a week ago. People will kind of poo-poo that matchup, but from a physicality and athleticism standpoint, North is in the discussion, and we know how good Prep is. So, I mean, the schedule does lighten up a little bit for Omaha Westside, especially after the next couple of weeks. But I wouldn't necessarily hold the schedule against Westside, primarily because they are down 6 starters.
And that's the other part of it, too, is we don't know what Westside is going to look like once we get to the postseason there,
and at 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So not GI and probably not next week, but after that, because we're kind of building up. Yeah. There's a couple guys that could probably get cleared. But you want to – Coach Freund
need to rush it, yeah.
Right? Coach Freund is really – and he actually did this with Caleb, right, where he wants you to practice a couple of weeks without playing just so you're not overcompensating when you're out there.
Smart.
Now, I thought Caleb was probably a week early against Papio, but we kind of felt like money was coming back and probably had to expedite some things. But I think patiently. So – there's 2 teams. I think Millard South is pretty close to who they're going to be.
Yeah. They're playing the best right now by far.
There's
for
no
sure.
question. And I think that's how they're going to play, right? I mean, they have prolific playmakers, and Gage Stenger he's definitely the straw that stirs that drink, right? He's just hard to account for in 11 on 11.
So while we're talking about that, so the final score of Bellevue West and Millard South was 42-28 Patriots. And here is Gage Stenger's stat line. 11 of 14 passing for 221 yards and a touchdown. And 20 carries for 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he played defense, too. Added a few tackles here and there. So pretty pretty solid day overall for the future Kansas State Wildcat.
And some crazy stat lines. You had Meneses. You had Stenger. I talked about Easton Maines from Elkhorn North.
About Noah Walters, 15-24 for 416 yards and 6 touchdowns.
He can flat out spin it.
Man.
If they had a little more depth.
Yeah. So just looking at that box score, it's crazy. So 416 yards went to 4 receivers. Yeah. You had Cooper Erickson, 4 catches for 159 yards.
He's a nice target to have, though.
Billy Stevenson, 5 for 103 and 2 touchdowns. Luke Greisen, 2 for 83 and a score. 83 yards on 2 catches. And then A.J. Sizes, 4 for 71 and a score like that.
Yeah, A.J. Sizes, my former teammate, David Sizes' son, who's helping out at Lincoln East. They got a big one against Lincoln Southeast. So
especially with Southeast coming off of just getting manhandled up at Burke against Creighton Prep. I was there for that one. And, man, that was a completely one-sided game. Prep rushed for 240 yards and 6 scores, and Southeast totaled 36 yards on 27 carries. And
just couldn't really get Budenbach going.
Well, part of that was the field position difference and the way Prep was able to jump out to a lead right away.
Yeah, you get the bad snap. How about taking the wind? How big was that?
So right away, there was Prep had more than 20-yard advantage in average field position. Their average was just inside their own 50. And Southeast started at their own 24. So the first right away you had a safety.
Yeah, you get down
out of the end zone. You had a punt that went backwards
and was recovered in the end zone because I think they went down 14-0 right away, right?
Actually not a safety is they had the bad punt that ended up being -1 yard, and then Prep scored 2 plays later, and then they got another bad punt. Prep got the ball inside their 50 and went down and scored. It was 20-0 by the end of the first quarter, and that game was over at that point.
Yeah, we talked to Coach Gatula last Friday morning, which was the morning after. Obviously, fairly disappointed. But how about this? We talk about the scheduling gods. They have 4 consecutive Thursday games, which
I don't know if I've ever seen that.
Well, it's tricky to negotiate the weekends.
Yeah.
Right, because you're in essence losing a Monday in terms of preparation. And so depending on what you do with your Friday is the recovery day and you start your game plan on Saturday, he's obviously got to bring the kids in over the weekend. And you hope they can kind of settle into those consecutive Thursday matchups, but not very advantageous from a preparation standpoint.
Yeah, so that's going to be a huge one, 8 versus 9 down in Lincoln on Thursday. And Southeast is going to have to bounce back. Man, as much as they struggled, boy, was Jake Applegate good. He was just a monster. And he did it every way. There was one play where he shook a guy loose with good footwork, another play where he got hit and then trucked the dude for an extra 7 yards before he finally fell down, went up and high-pointed a ball. And then his touchdown, nice, just simple little corner route that had the cornerback peeling off and going the wrong direction.
There's getting him his fair amount of touches, and then there's, as Keyshawn Johnson would say, get him the dang ball. Yeah. Like he needs every opportunity because almost every night out he's going to give you some sort of advantage, and he's their best playmaker.
And he had 8 for 131, and he didn't get nearly enough targets for my money. It just and they had a couple other guys that made some plays. Another receiver that went for 100 yards, but still felt like they could have targeted him even more. It seems like every snap it felt like he had an advantage.
So there were 2 teams that we said last week we felt like we knew who they were. Right now we're going to add a third because I think we now know who Millard South is. It was Southeast, Elkhorn South, just because of their playing style. and now Millard South. Now, there's two teams coming. We touched on both of them briefly, one in a loss and then Westside. Westside's, I think, has the most room to grow because they have the most good players not playing.
Yeah.
Now, how high their ceiling is, I don't know.
Because some of those guys are young, and we're still kind of learning what they are.
Now, Bellevue West, on the other hand, I think still has a pretty high ceiling.
Oh, yeah.
They got a ton of talent, and if they can get some guys, this isn't a Metro coach. This is me as a football fan looking at Bellevue West's roster. I would like to see some of that skill flip over and play defense.
Yeah.
They've got to get more athletic on the back end, and they have some options, right? You got a Helms, you got a Barnett, you've got some guys that you can use defensively. Shoot, if you can get it, I mean, and Mike Riley wants to play some defense. Gosh, I mean, he's such a good athlete. If those guys, you get a couple, just a handful of those guys to buy into the defensive side of the ball, I think that's a vastly different team.
Because we've talked about Bellevue West does have some talent. They've got some really good defensive players at each of the level, but right now the whole defense isn't quite clicking. Yeah. And maybe they used to go two ways with a lot of their guys a handful of years back. They stopped doing that in recent years, but you go back to Luchwecki and guys like that two-way standouts that made a big difference on both sides of the ball. And maybe that's something worth considering, especially with the depth. You don't have to play these guys all the time on offense. You can give some guys some snaps off because you've got so many options.
I wonder if watching what Millard South does with their two-way guys maybe lights a little bit of a fire, because Millard South has a lot of their skill that go both ways.
Yeah.
And they do it, I think they train that way. You know, it's so I think they still have a lot. I would nowhere near grab a shovel in any sort of loose dirt for Bellevue West, especially now that I think they've decided on a quarterback. I think Johansson's going to be the guy full-time going forward, and I think that's going to allow for a little more offensive continuity. And then they probably just have to get L.J. Richardson healthy.
Heck, even not healthy, he had 170 yards on 18 touches, 170 yards from scrimmage.
He's unbelievable. And he's got a little bit of a bad wheel, so it's kind of been a labor for him. But, again, kind of like Applegate, not sure how many touches is too many, but I would give that a try.
And as long as they have that guy, they'll be tough to deal with down the stretch of the season, especially with all the skill talent that we talked about.
Yeah.
I guess we kind of glossed over. It probably is worth mentioning what your Warriors did last week, more specifically. Dominic Rizak, school record, 308 yards and 26 carries and 4 touchdowns. Yeah. And tossed in a 32-yard kick return as well, just for the heck of it.
Yeah, 12.2 a touch.
That'll work.
Listen, I try to be objective, but he is so there's 3 things about him that I think make him unique. Number 1, tremendous fitness. He is in phenomenal physical shape. His 20th carry looks a lot like his second. Number 2, he's a sponge. Whatever you tell him, he can absorb, and he makes it real portable. I mean, immediately. He can use words, and he can turn it into action. And then the other thing, he's such a good teammate. The players, the kids like performing with and for him, because he's kind of like this reluctant superstar. You know, he's so loyal and such a good egg. It's like, you know, people say, oh, you know, why Air Force? Why Air Force? And number 1, Coach Calhoun has done a fantastic job of recruiting him. And I think Dom likes the fact that they run the ball 70% of the time. But there's probably, and I'm guessing here, but there's probably only 1 or 2 schools that he would even listen to it were they to come knocking. Now, he is invested and he's committed. And one would have to be like a Notre Dame, maybe a Stanford or a Northwestern, because he's a 30 ACT.
Yes.
It's like everything else he does. He's just committed. He's amazing. We thought we were going to have 2 school records, because Caleb had 19 tackles with 15 unassisted. But
in his first game at safety, right?
Yeah, he's played 2 positions in 2 weeks. I think he's going to settle in at safety.
I can see that.
But we have to decide now because we want to use him on offense.
Yeah.
And safety takes a little bit more of a toll on him. We'll still have him do special teams. But he's defensively, we're really starting to come around as secondary's got a few spots. We've been picked on a little bit.
And that was a 47-19 win. And we talked about how dangerous that Papio South kind of quarterback run game was. And,
he took a few licks early, and I think it changed their offense.
He had some success through the air, but you guys completely shut down the running game.
Medic is a handful. He's a fantastic kid.
Then Saturday morning, up there hooping for the fall league, which
I've never. So we had an interaction. I won't even bore you with the story, but I'm telling you, he was such a neat kid.
Oh yeah,
I was like, I'm a fan.
I'm a huge fan of Ian Medic. Just being around him on that OSA team, he's a huge culture guy. Just his personality is just someone you want to be around. And he had 9 catches for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns.
And he was so good-natured.
Yeah.
He comes over and he says, hey, you're talking about this ineligible guy downfield. He says, hey, coach. And I'm like, yeah, what's up? And he goes, hey, can you tell me what you mean there? Maybe I can go tell our guys, just so we can get lined up right. And he was so unassuming and cool about it. I just, in the moment, I was like, hey, you know what? You're covering up 41. Anytime 41 goes downfield, it's going to – he's like, okay, thanks, coach. And he just run. And Coach Freund looks at me like, what are you doing? But I just couldn't help myself because he was so engaging.
Well, yeah, he's always talking about it. His teammates, the other team, like he just loves to talk.
A lot of those guys felt like he should be playing varsity basketball last year. Like his peers, even the opponents – like Caleb loved that guy. He's like, oh man, 88 dad, he was so cool. And I was like, you don't have to tell me. Like, he's just a good kid. And you know what? I felt like Papio South has some pieces. Yeah. Now they didn't have Devin Jones, but they have some pieces to give themselves a chance. We'll see how it plays out for them. I think if we're looking ahead to this week, as our clock is rapidly moving. Let me give you my sneaky matchup of the week. It is Elkhorn South and Papillion. You may look at that on the surface and think,
especially coming off 49 win over Southwest for Elkhorn South.
You may think Elkhorn South rolls, and they may, but I'm telling you, sure as I'm sitting here, if Papillion is healthy, they will give Elkhorn South all they want. That is a big boy offense. They are fantastic at quarterback. They got options at wide receiver. I don't know. Is there a matchup you like? Maybe you're looking at prep?
Yeah. They got that Millward West on Thursday.
Something's got to give, right? 2-2 teams trending in the right direction.
Yeah, that's pretty much what's on stake here. It's a team that can keep going the right way. Both have some tough schedules early on. You get this win, I think you're feeling good about where you are heading in the second half of the year.
It should be a doozy. We'll bring it all to you. We'll recap and preview some more. The clock goes fast. We'll try to stay on task here. That's Jacob Padilla. I'm ODB. We'll be back next week with Nebraska Preps Postgame.
Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
A Hurrdat Media Production.